Okay.
Sweet. All right, everybody. Hey, we're going to get started here in just a few minutes. Probably right around 6 o'clock we'll get going. We're just going to wait for some folks to get on the stream. And just quick reminder as we get started tonight, if you guys have any questions at all throughout the talk, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll make sure to read them off as they come in. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this open while Josh and I prepare to go live. So. Hey everybody, thanks for joining. Just a couple more minutes and we're going to get started. Probably right around 6 o'clock. Just waiting for some folks to trickle into the stream. Yeah, we'll get going. All right, Josh, looks like it's time for us to get going. Let's see here. Looks like we got a couple folks on the stream. Hey everybody, thanks for joining. So yeah, real quick, I guess I'll just do a quick intro. Josh, thanks for coming back. You did a talk earlier, I guess later last year. I'm not sure what the date was, but yeah, so super glad to have you back. Give another talk. So for those of you that don't know, Josh is co-founder, right, of Uffizzi?
Yeah, that's right.
I always pronounce it wrong. Is that right?
Yeah.
Uffizzi?
Uffizzi. Yeah,
Gosh.
it's easy on Uffizzi.
Yeah, easy on Uffizzi. All right, sweet. So yeah, Josh is going to give a talk tonight on like kind of cloud preview environments. Really cool concept, and kind of really fits well with the Agile Manifesto and things like that. So Josh is going to take us through all the steps on how to get that stuff set up, and it's going to be really fun. So Josh, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Just a quick housekeeping item. as always, we're looking for fun, interesting talks. So if you're ever interested in giving your own talk, just like Josh, go to nashjs.org. There's a form at the top of the meetup page. Fill it out, let us know, and we'll get you on the schedule. So real quick in the chat, thank you all for giving the thumbs up about Docker Compose. But if you could give us a smiley face or something, just let us know that you're here and say hey and welcome and say welcome to Josh. So yeah, I'll shut up now and I'll let you go ahead and get started. So take it away. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thank you so much, Will. It's awesome to be back here after a little over a year, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I know I hate not being able to do this in person, and I keep saying it'll be soon, but who knows? Hopefully, maybe later this spring we can get back together and do this live, maybe back down at Emma. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I am going to try to ask some questions to get some engagement from everyone listening. And it looks like I got a couple responses on the Docker Compose, so thank you for that. And thanks for the intro, Will. So yeah, I'm a co-founder of Uffizzi, and I was a Navy SEAL for about 12 years, and then 2018 jumped in the tech world, co-founded Uffizzi, and I handle our developer relations. We're over in East Nashville, right on Main Street. Anyways, excited to talk to a Nashville Nash Dev meetup here. So the topic I'm talking about tonight is called Continuous Previews. So everyone's probably really familiar with CI/CD. This is CP, and it's an add-on process to your CI/CD. And what I'm talking about is as you're developing, building images, if you have CP, you can have an automated cloud environment that will get built. And so you can go test your code in the cloud. It'll have a preview URL. And then when you're done with that particular testing sequence, you can wipe out the whole thing with a trigger. And I'll show you the details on that. So without further ado, I'll jump right into the talk. I'm going to talk conceptually first. And I think, people tend to get that pretty quickly. And then I'll dive right into the more exciting part, which is the technical demo. So here we go. Okay. All right, so always like to open a talk with why do I care about this subject instead of jumping right into the what. But so why do I want continuous preview? So if you have this capability, you can begin testing earlier. So I'm talking about in a pre-merge phase at the feature branch level. Some big advantages here. You can bring your whole team into the testing process earlier. So whether it's QA or whoever's serving your QA function, maybe it's people on the product team or anyone else on your cross-functional team who needs buy-in to what any new feature that's getting developed. You can also test the feature, and this helps you prevent merging dirty code or broken features into main, where it becomes much harder to find and fix those problems. The capability also helps you accelerate your iterative feedback loops. So as an engineer pushing code, sometimes there's a long feedback loop between what you push, it gets merged, it gets deployed. Whoever might be the next level of testing, you might be separated both in time and through maybe a few processes. This allows for engagement between the engineer who's writing the feature and whoever that first or second or third level of approval is. So no gap between where the work is really getting done. And you can also really simplify your testing process. So in a sort of separations of concerns manner, you can test your feature and get the functionality done before it gets merged. And then in a post-merge, like in a staging environment, for example, you're mostly concerned that your integrations have worked out, you've merged into your code, and that it is all working well there. The feature, again, has been pretty much fully vetted prior to that phase. So I'll roll through the definition real quick. So continuous previews are an automation-enabled method or capability by which in-progress development branches, known as topic branches, are continuously deployed in a dynamic cloud environment and are available for collaborative review and testing at a secure URL. By this method, iterative feedback is accelerated and testing is conducted in a logical sequence where topic branch functionality testing is completed prior to integration testing and delivery. So I'll do some compare and contrast. So what a preview or preview environments look like versus standard deployments. So previews are ephemeral. They have a purpose-driven lifecycle. You stand them up for some testing, and then they're going to go away. At the feature branch level, this is pre-merge testing, and you get a preview URL, so something that's dynamically generated, and then that URL is also going to go away with the environment. Whereas a standard deployment, this might be like your long-running QA or staging or even production environments. Those are up all the time. This is post-merge, and they have a static URL, app.acme.com, for example, that isn't changing out. And then defining previews versus continuous previews. So a preview is any sort of test environment. So for the folks who are using Docker Compose, right, you're used to doing that locally. You Docker Compose up and down. That's your manually initiated preview on your local machine. And I'll show on Uffizzi, you can do a manual preview by using the GUI to create a cloud-based environment. And typically these are for individual developer and local testing. There's also some examples of cloud-based, and I'll show you that on Uffizzi when we get to it. Continuous previews are trigger-based, and they're more focused on collaboration. So not the individual developer level, but a team-focused system. So me as an engineer, I can test my feature in the cloud there, but I can also get other people to test it as well and give me feedback. Intended for sharing with team for feedback and approval, has a trigger-based lifecycle, and it's initiated and deleted via event webhooks. So how does CP or continuous previews fit in with Agile? And so this big loop here, design, develop, integrate, test, and launch, that's a typical Agile workflow. Continuous previews is an add-on capability. So as a feature is being developed, it is getting previewed during the development process. So again, you're shifting a lot of that early testing to the left earlier in the cycle, whereas typically it might happen post-integration. You're testing all the way here. In this case, you can test early, and you can also, this loop is tighter, right? Which means I can rotate through it a lot faster than going through this longer loop. And this is the continuous previews loop. So a feature gets designed, it gets ticketed, and that's step one. Okay, engineer is going to check out a branch in Git, and then automation will kick off a continuous preview onto your infrastructure. And then to close the loop out, the last step is to share the preview URL or the endpoint where your app is accessible back to the ticketing system, so others on your team can see that and test it there. The next few slides, I'm going to say really the same thing, but through a couple of different diagrams. So here's what CP looks like with a GitHub branching strategy. So here in this box, I have my continuous previews action. So I've checked out a topic branch, and as it's getting deployed, I can get reviews on that, right? So maybe the first couple iterations, the feature didn't quite pass. And then on the third iteration, it gets a thumbs up. Now it's ready to merge, and we merge it and move on. Okay, so how do we get to CP? And so what we've done at Uffizzi is we've taken Docker Compose, which a lot of engineers are used to running locally, and we've extended that a little bit, or given the opportunity to extend it. And so you can run that same configuration, but in a cloud development environment. So this is a compose file, and in red here is the absolute requirement. You have to have a ingress service, because you're in the cloud now, defined. And then these white boxes here are things you're probably going to want to add. So in this white box, I've got continuous preview. These are policies, and it's telling, I'm stating, hey, this is the trigger when I want to initiate a new preview deployment, and this is what I wanted to clean it up on. So this is set to deploy preview when pull request is open. and delete the preview when the pull request is closed. And I also have another setting, share it to GitHub. So when the preview deployment is complete, the URL will get shared to GitHub. There are a few other unique things. So again, Docker Compose, typically I'm using my entire workstation, so I don't have to set memory limits, but in the cloud, I'm going to need to define those. And so in the context of Uffizzi, if you were to deploy this, the default container size is 125 megabytes. If you need more than that, you can specify it here. And so that's what I've done under this worker service. And I've said, hey, this container needs a little bit more memory to run. I could set that at 250, 500, a gig or 2 gigs. And a Venn diagram here, Docker Compose and Uffizzi Compose. So Docker Compose has all of this capability locally, and then Uffizzi Compose is a subset of that, which is your main elements like services, image, build, configs, environment variables, and secrets, for example. And there's a few things that are not available on Docker Compose that you run locally, like the continuous previews with event triggers, ingress, and memory requirements, and some other feature add-ons as well. Okay, so these are the references. I'll post these in the chat if folks want to check these out later. All right, let's get into our demo here. Okay, so this is the app I'm getting ready to create a preview for, just to give everyone some situational awareness. This is a multi-container application. It happens to be written in a lot of different languages. That's not really the main point here, because these are all going to be Docker containers anyways. But so this is the voting app, and of note, there's 3 custom elements. I got the voting app, result app, and worker. Those are what our team, for example, is building. And then I've got some off-the-shelf images that are straight out off of Docker Hub, like Redis and Postgres. All right, so now we're going to enter the continuous previews loop that I referred to. So the first stage is the ticketing, right? So this ticket has been created, and the ticket is for changing the voting function of this vote app. We're going to double the dog vote, right? So it's a dogs versus cat. Of course, dogs are superior, and I want to rig it, the election, for them to win. So I'm going to go in here to change this, right? So in GitHub, I check out this branch, and I've been working on double dogs, and I'm ready now to open a pull request. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to create a new pull request. Okay, create. I apologize for the GUI point and click. It takes a little while. Okay, so this is open, right? All right, now just bear with me for 1 minute. I'm going to pretend like I'm another engineer working on this application, but on another piece of it. I'm now going to go into this results component. All right. And let's say I'm working on a different branch. And so I'm going to do a new pull request here. And this is going to be to change the color. All right, so I'm going to create that. Okay, so now I've opened 2 pull requests, right? So staying in my Git context. And so Uffizzi recognized each of those open pull requests, and it's now deploying my full stack application based on my Docker compose.uffizzi.yaml. So it'll take a couple minutes to build and deploy these, but once they're up, I'm going to have PR31 and PR92. These again from separate repos, and imagine a couple of different engineers working on separate branches. I'm trying to simulate this as a team and how you can have as many environments as you need that are trigger automation based. So this is going to take a few minutes. So I will give a quick tour of Uffizzi while we're waiting on this. So let's look at PR92. I can drill down here and watch the status. So right here, I've got my activity log. And so what I'm looking at is these are a piece of the commit IDs, recent commit IDs for my custom components. And those were building, now they're deploying. And then of course I've got Postgres, Redis, and Nginx, and those are getting deployed right now. So these are all spinning up. And as they are, I can drill down into each container or image, and I can look at the build logs, for example. And so if I had an issue here, I could check this out. And fortunately this worked, so it's done. And then once it stands up, I will have the container logs from this specific container getting piped right here. So I can do that with any of the containers. Let's see. And then let's go back and
hey Josh, real quick, while we're waiting for this stuff to spin up, I'm just curious, does this utilize like Docker's multi-stage builds at all, or is that is there an advantage to using that, or should you keep your Docker files pretty flat?
Yeah, so if you can define it in your Docker file, the multi-stage build, then we can honor that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and fortunately, this is happening fairly quickly, but this is a great time if folks want to ask any questions, because there's a little bit of a dead time. Otherwise, I'm happy to show how we set this up, but looks like this is working pretty quickly here.
So yeah, this is really cool. Like you showed this to me recently a couple of weeks ago, and I was super impressed. That's kind of why I wanted you to get on NashJS and talk about this. But you know, the whole concept of having an entire stack stand up, not just for a single service or for a single front end or back end. You have the entire, you know, you can have multiple services, multiple front ends, multiple ingress points, all deployed together as part of a single PR, which is a really interesting concept, which I haven't seen other types of environment, like preview environment type systems, do this before as cleanly or as easily as this. So pretty neat.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Will. I mean, I appreciate you having us on. That's right. I mean, that's the concept really, is having an isolated environment, but including all the dependencies. So I'm not having to connect to a lot of different, maybe other cloud services that, again, more difficult to manage the lifecycle on those. You know, you don't have sort of this ephemeral nature to it. And with this, you're basically getting what you get with Docker Compose, but instead of it being locally, I now have it in the cloud. And what's the great advantage of that is, like, I can easily share it and work asynchronously for anyone to review that. So this is going to take a little bit longer, and let's see if we got anything on the, oh, good. So on the event log, this is just something that can help me troubleshoot further. So on the back end, these containers are getting deployed to a Kubernetes pod. And so these events are getting spit out from the Kubernetes API. And so we can see things like this deployment is scheduled, and then it's going to go through a sequence of pulling, pulled, created, and started for each of the containers. And so you can follow that sequence to make sure that all of these stood up. Looks like everything is working so far. And my Nginx container is acting as effectively a production load balancer in this, simulating that. And so it's having a config file applied, and it's going to take a little bit longer. And it looks like Joseph asked a question. Thank you, Joseph. So does Uffizzi host this, or would the end user need to provide a cloud service backend? So you're looking at Uffizzi platform or Uffizzi cloud, and this is a fully managed service. So the builds are included. We handle the builds, and we handle the backend infrastructure deployment. So you're paying for a platform if you're going to use this service. We do have an open source version that we're going to be releasing later this spring, and that would be we call it BYOC. So bring your own Kubernetes cluster, and you can install and manage that yourself. That tool is going to be with a CLI interface, but that's how you can do it if you want to run it on your own infrastructure. We also do, if your company's interested in hosting this on their own infrastructure, we can help you set up that as well if you want the GUI.
Looks like we got another question from
Yeah.
Apothecary Dev. How does this improve over using like something like ngrok locally?
Yes. Yeah. So in Grok, right, I'm basically VPNing into someone else's local machine, which that certainly has value. This really eliminates the need for that type of service because again, you're getting in the cloud and then you have your preview URL. It's, in our opinion, it's just a cleaner way to do it, and you're not having to, really test against someone else's workstation.
I guess the other piece of that is they're longer lived. So as long as your PR is open, those preview URLs remain active. So, imagine a scenario at the end of the day, you close your laptop down, preview URL is gone, but maybe a teammate works at a different time zone or whatever, and they want to be able to check out, the new stuff that you've done. Well, laptop shut, can't connect.
Yeah,
so
that's exactly right. So the asynchronous work, right, in our remote first world, this is living, and anyone on the team can hit it, regardless of if I took my laptop on the road or shut it down for the night or whatever the case may be, or maybe my internet just went out. So, all right. So this preview URL came up, and I want to show how it. This comment, Uffizzi posted a comment here, and so I can go hit that. So the goal of Uffizzi is really to operate in the background. Once this gets set up, you shouldn't really need to log in a lot because it's going to be all trigger based. But if I never logged into Uffizzi, I could hit the URL right here. And so my cat's dog voting app came up right here. And then, of course, if I needed to go check out Uffizzi, I could just click on this, and if I'm already authenticated with my browser, I'd jump right back into.
Can we drop that link into the chat real quick? I want to see what everybody's voting for. Are you cats or are you dogs? Like, what is,
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, and when you pull that up, it's going to go to the results page. So go to the, there'll be a link to go vote. Show that here. Yeah, so go click here, and then you can tally your votes. I'm going to go ahead and try to get the dogs ahead. So
that's awesome.
See, and my rigged voting machine worked because I just voted once and I got 2 votes. We'll see how this. I don't know that our toy app here is sophisticated enough to take a lot of votes. We'll see. And then, of course, the change color brand, this deployed as well, and I can hit that as well. That one didn't come up. Let's go check that out, but it might not be fully up yet. All right. So I think to close this out, I'm going to now go and close my PR. Let's see here. Let's go into get back to worker. All right. Okay, I'm just going to close this. And so Uffizzi just wiped out that whole environment. So the only one I have left now is from the results component when I open that PR. Let's see. And I think I'll take a second now, Will, to show the setup here. So the way, obviously we use triggers. And so to get this set up, I have a compose.uffizzi.yaml that lives at the top of my directory in my main branch. And let me show that here first. So I've got this file here. And so this operates similarly to the concept of if you use like Circle CI or GitHub Actions, those are defined with a YAML file that lives at the top of your directory in main. And so when I'm applying this to Uffizzi, I'm basically giving it a set of instructions to follow. And so I went through this a little bit in the slides, but I've got my extension Uffizzi, which Docker, they basically made this feature that this is still a valid compose, but it's made specifically for Uffizzi because they have this X Uffizzi extension, or excuse me, they have the X. I guess I should say they've got this capability, and so this can be X a lot of other things, but we're using it as, of course, as X Uffizzi. And then, okay, I've got Redis, and I'm just gonna, I can pull that directly from Docker Hub, which is the syntax here. Same for Postgres, and I have secrets being applied, and I'll show you how I got that set up. But these are just the names of those secrets for the Postgres. This was in the worker component repo, and so the build is just going to default to this context and the Docker file that's here. I've got memory limits set, and then my other components live in separate repos. You can do this on a mono repo or split. In this case, I'm demoing split repos. And in this case, I have to define the context, which is in a separate repo. That's why I can't use, the same repo that I'm in. So I've got the URL for that repo here. I'm also giving it assigning it a port number. And that has to do with some Nginx routing that we have going on internally. I'm doing the same for the vote component. And then I'm using Nginx. We're applying a configuration at runtime, and that configuration is called vote.conf. That also lives in my repo, and it's getting pulled from there and applied. I mentioned the secrets. So this is the Docker Compose convention for that. And so these are external secrets, right? And so they actually live, you apply those, check those in, they're write only. And so you write them right in here, and then at runtime, we'll inject those. So to do it in a secure manner. Okay, so now let me show. So with Uffizzi, you're effectively just telling Uffizzi where your compose is so that it can read it. And so I specify the repo name, what branch it's on, and the path to it. And then I can validate and save it. And then that's what's getting rendered here is your compose file. And one way you can do a deployment, if you don't want to do the trigger, I talked about manual preview. So I can just hit new preview right here, and it's going to deploy that for me. So Will, we talked about this. If there was a unique use case that the automated sequence didn't work for me, maybe I wanted to connect to some sort of third-party service to test against that. I could define that in my compose and then do what's called like a one-off, like ad hoc or manual preview in that way. So, and naturally and this isn't fully implemented, so I'm kind of doing this will be in a future release, but we're going to post the preview URL back into the ticket where it initiated again. So teammates can come in here and comment on the implementation and make any adjustments so you can iterate back. So, all right.
I love that it said, actually, I wanted triple dogs.
Yeah, we can go do that. So that's really it, Will. And I'd love to open it up for any questions about this from the audience.
Yeah, sure. Let's see if we got anything coming in. So while we're waiting for some folks to ask some questions, could you touch a little bit? You mentioned the open source projects that you guys got coming up. Can you talk a little bit about that? How can folks get involved in contributing or checking that stuff out when it's ready? Yeah,
for sure. So if you go to the Uffizzi Cloud GitHub repo, so the CLI, so we're developing that out now, and that'll be released. The controller is already fully released. And then we will have, we haven't released it yet. Let's see. That's why it's buried deep in my repo. Okay, so this Uffizzi app, so this is going to be the main application to run in open source. And so once we get that out, we'll have the contributing instructions. It'll be standard to what most open source projects are, which is you're going to fork it to your own repo, work on it, and then do a pull request back to it. But again, that's unfortunately we don't have it fully out yet because we have some more work to do. But we'd love to get contributions to it once it's fully open, and I'll certainly post that in NashDev.
That's killer.
So
the model for Uffizzi is it? Are you thinking kind of like you have two tiers where you have the open source model where most of the features are going to live there, and then the hosted platform is probably going to have some additional stuff, but also just you don't have to have the overhead or headache of managing your own infrastructure. Is that the kind of the value that's being added there?
Yeah. So the primary value of the platform is not having to manage the infrastructure, or the number of things you manage is very little. You can get up and running as fast as you can check in your compose right on the platform. And, there is a significant amount of time and energy just to manage your own cluster. You're gonna have to manage the Uffizzi installation. And then we also have organizational features in the paid version. So we have role-based access control, SSO, and it's a lot easier to use for a team. The CLI is going to allow people to set up the automated versions really easily, and you can also do some manual versions with the CLI as well. But it's basically it's a lot more to maintain, and it doesn't have quite as many team features.
Cool, gotcha.
I saw. Looks like Joseph asked, "Is the spin down tied to the PR?" So yes, it is, and that trigger was set in the compose, right? You mentioned, can you tie it to other hooks? We don't have it tied to other hooks, but we do have a feature where you can define delete after. Let me find an example of that. Let's see. So in our docs here, I can add this delete after section. And so I can put any number of hours in here from 1 to 720. And so this just helps prevent you from having a mushroom farm. And so you can tie it to a time-based deletion. So what I showed is where Uffizzi is doing a fully managed build process. We also have a capability where you can use your existing CI/CD to build the image. And then once you dump that artifact into your container registry, we can watch that with a webhook and initiate the preview that way. If folks are interested in that capability, I'll drop the link here. Let's see. There's a blog here at Continuous Previews to your CI/CD that walks you through that. Let's see if I wanted to. So one of the thing in our repo. So this site is getting pulled from the repo, and this is of course open source, but this is the Continuous Previews manifesto, which is about the process that I just talked through and gave the brief on. But if folks are interested in this, you can read about the principles, compare and contrast a traditional model, learn about CP in practice, and then look at, hey, these are the key performance indicators that are improved by CP. So your lead time, your cycle time, your team velocity, and your code stability. So that is out there as well, if folks are trying to educate others about this process.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you maybe touch on a little bit of maybe some alternatives to like maybe ways people have been doing preview style environments thus far, and then
Yeah.
again maybe touch on a little bit why maybe the open source stuff that you're contributing to or building out is going to maybe change the game a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So probably the problem we're trying to solve in the industry is we've observed lots of teams will build out their own capability. And there's not a solution out there that anyone is actively working on, actively innovating on that people can go out there and get. And so, we've talked to folks from like Stack Overflow, for example. They built their own solution. A lot of the FANG companies, if you talk to folks so Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, engineers who work there, they'll have their own capability. And what we notice is, particularly for teams that have, if they have a team that they can dedicate to developer productivity, right? That internal team will build out a very similar capability to this, and they'll build it and they'll manage it for the rest of the developers in the organization. But this is, of course, a lot of work to be like, you wouldn't, for example, like folks typically don't build out their own ticketing system now, right? Like, because Jira is pretty good. You got GitHub issues is like good and getting better. And so we're trying to do the same thing for previews, is have a solution out there that people don't have to build and maintain their own, and something that we can keep innovating on for the industry, particularly like for the open source community. And as people have different features they want to add in, we want to enable them to do that. So a fairly, like, people tend to think of like, well, this is deployments, you're managing deployments, and we're really focusing on the preview concept. This is about ephemeral environments in the process, sharing the URL, getting the feedback, and tearing it down. So that's really the market niche, the CP niche that we're trying to fill.
Awesome. Very cool. Let's see. It doesn't look like we have any other questions coming in, but
Yeah.
is there any contact info or anything you want to plug to have folks reach out to you?
Yeah, for sure. I will drop my Twitter handle. Please, DMs are open. And if anyone is interested in trying this out and you want like a demo account, just DM me in the NashDev Slack, or you can DM me on Twitter. That's fine. And I'll be happy to set that up for you. So yeah, we'd love to get people trying it out and giving us feedback.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thanks so much. It was great to see this again. Every time I see it, it makes me really excited about the future of continuous previews. So
yeah, thank you. Thanks. Well, we're excited. We're, probably we're continuing to refine the capability and make a lot more user friendly, and add some capabilities. But we're eventually going to try to have an AI component, which will be IzzyBot, which is going to be your QA assistant that'll pop up and say, hey, this preview is ready to go. Would you like to review it? Or, and add a layer to help with the QA process. So we're excited about maybe a year from now, we can talk about that.
For sure. Oh, it looks like Joseph, just a quick note, Joseph mentioned they've seen similar implementations at jobs where they've rolled their own. He said you really have to make sure that the teardown step happens if you're going to roll your own. Like
yeah,
that mushroom farming, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of individual services, your DNS, your SSL, the underlying compute nodes, your networking, all that's got to get torn down. And so we're trying to make that so it's seamless for folks, because you're right. You can have a lot of IP addresses and subdomains and other things floating around if the teardown doesn't fully work, right? And someone's got to go manually check that out and clean it up.
Yeah, and you may have touched on this earlier in the talk, but what is the pricing model in terms of compute or number of environments, stuff like that? Is it like a flat fee, or is it number of deploys, or what does that look
like? Yeah, if you want, I'd be happy to show it to you.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, my cats are going bananas. You probably hear that in the background.
It's all good. Okay, so if you go to the pricing page, so the first 4 team members are free, and what's included on the compute is you get 1,000 build minutes and 10,000 preview minutes. So I say this is equivalent of, you could run like a 1 gigabyte preview application for 4 weeks a month, 8 hours a day. So basically, like during all your working hours, you could run a full app preview application with this amount of preview minutes. And so that's all included for free. And then as you add like 5, 6, 7, 8 team members, those get charged $15 a head. And then if you exceed these, you basically buy a bundle. So if you exceed your 1,000 build minutes, the next 500 is $5. And then on the preview minutes, it's $10 for additional 10,000 minutes. And honestly, we just, we want to try to get this as simple as possible. We have to sort of incentivize people to not just run things indefinitely. It's intended to be ephemeral. And if, anyways, that's why we have, delete preview after so much time, as well as close when you close your PR, delete it. We will have like a sleep function. So you can set, hey, I want all previews to go to sleep at like 5 p.m. on every weekday. And then I want them to sleep for the entire weekend. And that's a way to preserve that compute. In general, we're trying to like promote not wasting compute. I think we're all, I know we're really guilty of, once you spin something up, like no one ever hardly shuts it down. So.
Yeah, it seems awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
Well,
thanks for letting me share that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing this stuff with us. Like I said, we'll stay close to this, and as you roll out that open source libraries, for the CLI and for the app, definitely would love to give that a go too.
For sure. I'll let you know when we get that, and maybe I can come back and demo that. We can do like a full installation or something. So
yeah, that'd be killer.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, again, thanks so much. And as always, y'all, if any of you have talks or anything you really want to see here at NashJS, let us know. Drop a note in NashJS on NashDev in the JavaScript channel. We're trying to find more talks for the rest of the year. What we're really trying to do is actually come up with a series of talks that are kind of like themed, that are can kind of build on top of each other. So if anybody has anything they'd like to see, let me know, so we can get a nice curated list of talks going. So lots of thanks in the chat. So
awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate that.
Everybody that was able to come out tonight and join us, appreciate you, and we'll see you next month. I don't think we have anything scheduled just yet, but I'll let you know as soon as we do. So catch you guys later.
Hey, yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone who, if you got any questions, feel free to DM me. I love to talk about this stuff. So thank you again.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.